allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, this is to start with the organization meeting. We begin with the elections for board chair, vice chair, and I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Is there a nomination for the position of board chair for 2024 for the Hubbard County Board?
Go ahead.
No, you're the outgoing chair.
Okay, I'll make the nomination of Shar.
I'll second. I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? Are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? Are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? There being no further nominations, call for a vote on the motion.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. We have a new chair for 2024. Are there any nominations for the position of vice chair for the Hubbard County Board for 2024?
I'll nominate Steve Kerner.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? There being no further nominations for the position of vice chair, all in favor of Steve Keranen as vice chair for 2024 for the Hubbard County Board, say aye.
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 Very good. We have a chair and a vice chair for 2024.
Okay.
We pass the gavel. Here's the gavel, and it's now next to Shar.
And Tom said he didn't want to have an outgoing speech, so.
Oh. Couldn't think of anything to say. I thought it was a good year, but
It was a good year.
look forward to 2024 now.
Okay, so we are going to move on to the 2024 meeting procedures and bylaw update.
And these updates are all administrative, just correcting things for the current year. Nothing new in here.
So you want votes on all three of these, correct?
We do.
Okay,
We do have that correction for the committee, I'm not committee, but the schedule of board meeting dates.
I think we'll vote on that next. We have to do the procedures first?
Oh, I thought you were going to do all three.
Oh, do you want all three done at one time?
We can do all.
sure can.
We can do all three.
Okay, let's do all three. I did have one, how come we don't have a phone number here for the victim service coordinator? I was just curious about that.
We will fill that in.
Okay. Okay, and then Tom, for the meeting dates, do you wanna,
December 3rd, what you have for the first meeting is going to be at the AMC conference, so we'll need the following week. And Ted has his calendar there, whatever
So
day that
the
is.
AMC meeting, is that the week of the 10th?
I mean,
Yeah, it starts on the
9th,
8th.
So we'll need to have the first meeting on December 3rd.
Okay.
Yep.
the
So we'll have the
AMC moved it.
regular schedule in December and no work session in December.
Correct.
Yeah,
And we'll make that correction as well.
thank you, Tom. And then the committee list, did anybody have any, do we wanna do appointments separate?
I have a couple of things on the committee list.
Okay,
Go ahead.
It might make sense to just approve the first two and then do the committee because there's
Okay.
probably a few more changes.
okay, so do we have a motion to approve the first two?
So moved.
Okay, Ted moves,
Second.
Dave seconds, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay, Ted, go ahead.
On the committee list, there's two things. Under the AMC standing committees, I've noticed that basically there's one commissioner in each of the categories except for AMC Ag and Rural Development, where that's got David and myself. And then I see David's got three, not counting the delegates, has three committees on AMC, and some commissioners only have one. And basically, I don't know, and like I said, maybe David knows why there's two of us on Ag and Rural Development. And I guess I always thought I was on that one because I'm the lone
I could
farmer.
probably take another one.
Yeah,
Somebody's got a suggestion?
yeah. Or just remove you from the ag, because then we've still got one delegate on each.
From which one?
On the ag and rural development. Because then like I say, then there's only one commissioner on each committee.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
by my understanding, Ag and Rural Development and Broadband are ad hoc committees,
Yeah,
and Indian Affairs is an open committee.
yes.
So the actual appointments that we'll make with AMC are Environmental Natural Resource, General Government, Health and Human Services, Public Safety, and Transportation.
Yeah, and like I say, it's just a kind of a
Yep.
technical thing.
Do you think Dave was on for broadband and you were on for ag?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Probably was the rationale.
And he's, yeah.
Yeah.
So and I just thought that as a correction, and it's no big deal, because I don't remember meeting with Ag and Rural Development a whole lot over the last 5 years. So then the only other correction I saw was for extension, Teresa Ohm for District 5 has agreed to be reappointed for the extension.
And Sue Tomte has also.
We could even ask Sue, she's in the room.
And going down to the HRA, Kathy Henry has also agreed to be reappointed.
And that's all I saw. And I know with one commissioner on each of the AMC committees, I'm sure if another commissioner wants to join in, it's not a quorum or anything. And I just thought I don't know what you want to call it.
To me.
Tom, why are you in yellow at the Water Management Task Force,
I don't know.
What page is that? Oh,
the last one?
Okay,
Um,
well, it's got the date of
be-
12/31.
because it was,
Oh, the
he would
term
need to
is
be
up.
reappointed.
Okay. So do we want to do the reappointments with approving the committee list? Okay.
I would move to approve the committee assignments with the discussed changes and appointments.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. The agenda approval. Jeff, are there any changes?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're going to pull item 8A for further discussion.
Going to pull it all together?
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Nope.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Steve?
I'll second.
10 seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, for a public input, I would like to move, if that's okay with the board. Anybody here that wishes to talk about the EAW, we would hold public comment for that at that time. And take any other public comment now. Is that okay with the board?
I agree.
So do we have anybody here to speak on public comment not about the EAW? Okay. Consent agenda. Anything you want pulled there?
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have one person for employee recognition. John Sloster, dispatcher jailer, began a full-time position on December 27th of 2023. Welcome. Okay, the DAC contract.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just have a couple items, and the first one up is the renewal of the contract for the DAC for providing services. It's pretty straightforward continuation from what we've done. Some of the rates may be a little bit more just based on the DHS reimbursement having changed for some things.
Any questions?
They do a pretty good job with that clientele and that client base, and we've got a pretty good relationship moving forward with them. So again, I would just ask for the approval.
Do you know, I know at one time Laura was having trouble finding enough positions in the area. Do you know how that is?
I think that they still have that issue. However, they've done some different staffing models and some different things, kind of thinking outside the box to cover that. But overall, I think that they're doing pretty well.
Great. Board wishes?
I'll make a motion to accept the contract for DAC.
Ted moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then the next item up I have is the Hubbard County burial policy update. Just based on, so the county burials, we, for individuals that are, that pass, that are in poverty, and don't necessarily have the means to, or the family doesn't have the means to bury them, provide a proper burial. In 2017 was the last time we updated this policy, and it was $3,000. There are lots of examples of other counties that are paying more just based on the cost. And so we're just asking for just to approve the policy up to $3,000, and then the family would need to contribute $1,000 of that. That would allow them to have up to $4,000. As you can see, Clarice, she's our collections officer. She revised this policy. She's just doing a really, really good job. But you can see that the different costs at the different places. She's got the numbers there of ones we've done, and this isn't a budget breaker or anything really to be of concern. Just provides those members in our community the right to a proper burial, and I would just ask for the approval.
Brian, I'm assuming that if there is no family or the family can't afford the $1,000,
Yeah, generally we would work with the funeral homes to cover just up to the $3,000, and generally speaking, the funeral homes are willing to work. I mean, those are cases where it's, again, these are cases where it's no family, a widow that doesn't have, or doesn't have any money, the death of a child, forbid it, that it would be, those would be the types that they would, that would count for it.
thank you.
Yep.
So Brian, what happens, even looking at the fee schedule? 4,000 doesn't technically cover, so do the funeral homes then, they adjust, or how is that made up?
They do adjust. They will, again, because it doesn't happen that often for the amount of, so they work with, sometimes though, depending on what the families choose, they will offer payment plans, et cetera, for some of them if they want to go above and beyond. But generally speaking, they make it work with the $1,000 contributed and the additional monies contributed by the county.
Board wishes?
I'll move to approve.
Tom moves.
I'll second.
Ted seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, board, and Happy New Year.
All right, Eric, you're up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Got two items for the board this morning. The first is a quote from Pro Weston Associates for providing services to upgrade our Parcel fabric, which is a component of our GIS software that we use to maintain the text parcel map, and it also has the primary benefit of when we make edits in the map to say the boundaries of a text parcel when that affects roads or other data layers within our GIS inventory of data. It allows those edits to apply to everything that's affected as opposed to having to go in and touch each and every one of those data layers separately. So this kind of falls in line with the other recent software updates that we've made just to stay current essentially with the direction that Esri's going with its software, and the current fabric that we have is going to be in that stage of reaching deprecation. So that's the reason for the proposed work, and we have funding that we've already talked with Lauren in the recorder's office, or the former recorder's office, now Property Records, and she's willing to allow the funding to come from the compliance fund to cover the cost of the upgrade and the related training that goes with it. So happy to entertain questions. Otherwise, I'm seeking approval to have Pro West do that work for us in, I guess it's now 2024 instead of the next year.
Do we have a time frame for completion of that?
Our initial hope had been that it would be able to occur in first quarter, and then Murphy's Law. When I talked to the president at Pro West, she said everybody and their brother has already gotten in the queue to do this as well, so we won't be able to get it accomplished in Q1 as we had hoped, but they said thereafter they have a open calendar, so we'll have to work with Lauren and Maria to see what would be the most convenient window for them for the work to occur, because there's about a 3-week window where we won't be able to make edits to the parcel map when Pro West is working on getting things switched over.
The table that's up on the screen, in a sense, we've got two different prices, or so there are two different options here.
Yep, and we've recommended the first option, which has in-person training as opposed to trying to do it remotely. So they would do what they did the last time when we first moved to Fabric years ago, would be to bring one of their staff on site to work with Jack and Edward, our new GIS specialists, to provide them with the training they need so that they can, see that there won't be a whole lot of differences, but it's like most anything, the user interface changes a little bit, so it's a matter of learning the new tools and tricks that are available and where to find things.
It sounds like it'd be more on hands too versus over the remotely.
So for the slight additional cost, I find that that's well worth it.
I know I would need hands-on training. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve.
All right, Dave moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Jack?
Thank you. And the second item I have for the board is a petition requesting an environmental assessment worksheet on a campground project that is going through the process of seeking approval for a conditional use permit to operate. So, as you saw in the packet, there is a large amount of material provided in that petition for the board to review. Happy to answer questions that the board might have about any aspects of that. In general, with an EAW petition, the county has either a 15-day business day window in which to make a decision on that, or the board can choose to extend that review window an additional 15 days if it feels there's a need. But we need to make a decision either to say yes to the petition, and that would then lead to our going through an environmental assessment worksheet process, or the board would find potentially that there is not reason to do an EAW, and then you would deny the petition. Either way, we would need to provide the Environmental Quality Board, the state Environmental Quality Board, with a written copy of the board's decision and findings that support the board's decision within 5 days of that decision taking place. The EAW itself gave a copy of the worksheet in the packet so that you could see the questions that are asked in that worksheet. aside from 2 questions in there that deal with greenhouse gas emissions and climate change impact of the project, I don't feel that there's anything that the EAW would provide us in terms of information that we don't already have in our possession through the variance and conditional use permit applications that were submitted to us. There was a question asked at the Planning Commission meeting when the conditional use permit application was heard as to whether or not the type and size of watercraft that would be on the docks for the campground could be regulated, and I, at that point, said my initial thoughts were that I didn't think we could, but I'd check with council, which I did, and council agreed that the state has not given counties the authority to extend its regulation authority that far to apply to watercraft, so we would not be able to regulate those. The only way to really get at that issue, if it would be a concern, would be for a surface water use regulation to be added to the surface water use ordinance in the county. That way, then it would apply to every operator of watercraft on the lake. That's the only way legally to do so, so that you're equitable in terms of the regulations applying to everyone.
That's what I was gonna ask, if that could be done. So thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. There's also some question as to the DNR and what their thoughts on the project were. And the area hydrologist with the DNR has been aware of this project for quite some time and has been fielding inquiries herself on it, and I've been in conversation with her, and she did not find that the project rose to a level that warranted the DNR's written comment. That's why we didn't have anything of that sort. I did provide her oral comments to me in my staff report to the Planning Commission, as well as those that I received from their aquatic plant management permitting staff person, as far as the vegetation removal that would accompany the dock systems that are proposed. So those are the few items that I can think of where there were some outstanding questions that had been asked, just to let you know what the information was in regard to those.
Eric, I had talked to Eric this morning on this. So if the board voted to do an EAW and we voted to take it out of house, could you explain to this board the process?
Sure. So there'd be a couple options there. One would be that you could do a request for proposals and put that out there for consultants to prepare quotes for the board to consider. A few years ago, the Environmental Quality Board also developed a list of kind of approved consultants that do that type of work that they have listed on their website, and we could also apply to use that process through the EQB. And then if we did that, there would be a master agreement, is the term they use, that we would have the Department of Administration draft to allow us to use one of those consultants to do the EAW process for us. Then the consultant would basically assume the role that otherwise would be assumed by my department, which is working with the applicant to get the information for the EAW, determining if that information is complete and adequate, and then running it through the process that's spelled out in the environmental review, which is basically to then submit that worksheet to the EQB. It's then distributed through their monitor publication. Public agencies are notified and given a 30-day comment period. Those comments then would come back, the consultant would review those, and then would need to respond to those comments in writing. And then after that public comment period and response period is ended, then that information would be brought back to the board with the EAW, and then you would make a decision whether you felt that that provided the information that was needed, or if it did not, then the next step would be to order that an environmental impact statement be prepared, which is a much more in-depth and exhaustive and costly process. And then that would run its course, and then you would make a decision on whether that was sufficient. And all this environmental review process would need to happen prior to the conditional use permit being able to be acted upon by the board. And that's, again, according to the rule saying that any environmental review must occur prior to final action on any zoning applications related to a project.
Um,
Oh, and lastly, the ordinance also stipulates that the cost of going through any environmental review process would be borne by the applicant or the developer of the project.
I've been a commissioner for 5 years now, and then I was prior on the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, so it'd be 9 years. In my memory, I don't remember us ever requiring anybody to do an EAW. Am I correct?
Correct. The last project that met mandatory environmental assessment worksheet criteria took place in 2010, and that was for a resort conversion to a residential planned unit development.
Is that on Little Sand?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I had questions along the same line as Ted did. So for clarification, in our ordinance, this project does not meet the minimum requirements for an EAW?
Yeah,
It requires an EAW?
it's not in our ordinance. Our ordinance doesn't speak to that, but in the environmental review rule, which is 4410, it lays out a number of different types of projects and what they call mandatory thresholds, that if those thresholds are met, then a project is required to go through a mandatory EAW. And this project does not meet any of those mandatory EAW criteria. And it also does not meet mandatory environmental impact statement criteria. Those are a higher standard. So if it doesn't meet EAW criteria, it's not going to meet EIS criteria.
So to clarify Commissioner Van Kampen's comment then, has Hubbard County ever required then an EAW that didn't meet the minimum requirements, thresholds?
Not in my time of 19 years. The only ones I can think of that went through that process were ones that met the mandatory thresholds.
Are there any other questions right now for Eric, or should we open up for public comment? Ready for public comment? Okay, excuse me. So, just to speak comes up to the podium and write your name and address down, please. And then you have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Kurt Sale, 17682 Happy Drive. My statements today are about why you should have the EAW done, and you should contract it out to a third party. No disrespect to the people in environmental services. They've provided a lot of information to our group over time. We appreciate that. A couple of things. The developer did reduce the number of RVs that he was gonna put in, so he would fall underneath the mandatory requirements for an EAW. So this is a petition by the citizens, which in my review of the records hasn't really come before your board in a long time. It's either mandatory or it's not mandatory, and the citizens never really. So we put together, and we're no environmental engineers. I mean, we didn't have 3 months to get a degree. We're retirees, teachers, firemen. So that's why some of the questions in here might be a little vague and a little speculative as addressed by that. That's why we believe the environmental assessment worksheet done by a third party will relieve a lot of the questions that we have. Now, it might come back and say everything that's already been said, it's fine. At least you as a commission can have something to fall back on to say, we had an independent review of this, as controversial as it is, this is what we're gonna go with. If you don't do that, that leaves you open to just, certainly our citizens will always question whether it's been the due diligence that's been done. Statements in there about, well, the vegetation will grow back, those are the concerns that we have. I understand that regulating the boat traffic on the lake is hard to do. Every time I turn around, it says somebody else, but nobody is really regulating that. In such a small lake that we have, the boat traffic, the increase is gonna substantially wreck the vegetation on everything else. It's 80 feet from my dock, that it's still 6 foot. That vegetation could go with one wake boat. By doing the environmental assessment review, to have an independent third-party contract to do it, I believe that gives you the criteria that you need to go forward. So that's what I would encourage this board to do. I know it's a first working day of the year and you have controversy in front of you, but I would appreciate if you'd consider that when you take your vote. Thank you.
Kirk, can you sign in, please?
Excuse me?
Is there a paper there for you to sign in?
There is not a sign
Oh.
sheet here.
Eric, do you have a
I have a
page you
pen.
can-
Is there someone else that wishes to speak? I've got my timer going, so if I say, try finish up, it means you're at 3 minutes, or just about at 3. Okay.
I want to get my point across. Anyway, I'm Teresa Zellinger, I'm at 18298 Hannah Lane, and, Madam Chair and Commissioners, I want to clarify some of the findings of fact that was done. Number 2, roughly half of the documents are copies of portions of the public record. That was a quote. We were required with this EAW petition to include the entire source of the documents as any evidence we included in the petition. So that's why there's so much evidence that's there. These documents were used to support or clarify potential effects, which on review were not addressed or overlooked in analysis. Number 5, criteria 1, type, extent, reversibility of environmental effects. This finding only considers the project property and ignores the greater lake. While technically correct, some data can be misleading. Aerial photography shows the sparsity of trees in the northwest area, as well as a hole in the canopy. In these areas, the depth will be less than 200 feet. In the first row of sites are generally at 150 from the ordinary high water mark within the tree line. The future home, garage, and driveway all are within the tree line. The trees are a visual barrier, but will not provide the noise barrier needed by the greater lake. Number 6, the criteria 2, cumulative potential effects of anticipated future project. No proof was thought to be needed as it did not seem to be a secret. The landowner was approached about the parcel during the October viewing, and he had no hesitation in disclosing the purchase option. Mary Griebler was sitting next to him and witnessed this. Since the plans for this property are unknown and the RV park is proof that we lack imagination, this was included as a potential future area for significant impact. Number 7, criteria 3, the extent to which the environmental effects are subject to mitigation by public regulatory authority. The SMO has jurisdiction over the subject property and contains extensive regulations to protect the county's public waters. The rest of the findings all related once again to the immediate project property and ignore the impact of the enterprise on the greater lake. Number 8, criteria 4, the extent to which the environmental effects can be anticipated and controlled as a result of other available environmental studies. The county is not aware and once again ignores the impact of the greater lake.
You need to wrap up, please.
Okay? I can't see my last mistake.
Yeah, you could just,
Okay. In the healthcare field, which I'm in, they focus on preventative medicine. Why then would you not want an EAW to proceed to make sure we are not damaging our waterway? This is preventative medicine in our body of water.
thank you, Teresa. Is there anyone else?
Chairman. Congratulations. And Commissioners. I'm Mary Griebler. I live at 18593 Ithaca Drive. And I wanted to go over why we wrote a petition. And we've been trying to be heard in a process that's unfamiliar to us and get up to speed quickly, and it's been a very steep learning curve. We're not ordinance scholars, and our expectations were frequently out of step with how the ordinance was applied. We believe the ultimate purpose of the ordinance is to protect the public waters. Yet our concerns about the increase in dwellings from 60 to 101 and the addition of 21 mooring spots were never addressed in the context of how it would affect Pickerel Lake as a whole. Since the increases are significant and we have doubts about Pickerel's ability to handle them, it's reasonable to request an assessment of how the increased load will affect the lake. Each lake is different, so the assessment needs to be tailored to the characteristics of Pickerel. After repeated disappointments with the variance approvals and the lack of response to our concerns, it seems that now we've reached the point where the only possibility for us is to request an EAW. The purpose of the citizen's position is to show that there is potential for significant environmental effects. To find potential, you need to speculate. We included many quotes from publications to build a framework to support our belief that there is indeed potential. The EAW is to assess the likelihood of potential effects taking place by people who are qualified to make the assessment. The items we're particularly interested in from an EAW are 12B, 4B, underwater resources, to discuss how the project will change the number and type of watercraft on any water body, including current and projected watercraft usage. Number 14, fish, wildlife, plant communities, and sensitive ecological resources. Number 19, noise, especially how it affects the quality of life. And 21, the cumulative potential effects, which would be the interaction of findings from the above items. We want you to step back and look at the big picture and tell us what's going to happen to our lake if we can figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else? All right, board, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Well, I've listened to both variants in August and October, and then I also listened to the entire COP process, and I thought Eric and the Planning Commission addressed a lot of the concerns. We have our shoreline management ordinance that controls, and also the number of conditions put in the proposed COP. I don't see a reason to go forward with a EAW.
Mr. Chair, I'll kind of echo Commissioner Kruger's response. Our shoreline ordinance is set up to protect the lakes. Every lake is classified, and what is allowed is somewhat dictated by the lake classification. When a property owner meets all the requirements of the ordinance and the development does not exceed the minimum standard for an EAW, I see no justification for requiring an EAW that would likely generate little new information than what has already been presented. I am, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners have read through all the public comment and have watched the Board of Adjustment meetings regarding the CUP. I believe the Planning Commission has done a thorough job vetting all the concerns that have come before them, but we have an ordinance in place, and it's our job to make sure that ordinance is followed. If we want to do things outside of the ordinance that don't meet a minimum standard, I suggest we look at changing the ordinance, which we all know is a very difficult thing to do. But Hubbard County does have one of the most restrictive shoreline ordinances in Minnesota. I would venture to say it's one of the top 10 most restrictive shoreline ordinances in the state,
I think we have a good ordinance in place right now.
if not even higher than that.
I guess it's some of the, excuse me, some of the unknowns, you know, that
the possibilities that are there that are a little concerning for me. You can't, there's no true definition of if this happens, that's going to happen. So that's just my standpoint on this. I've read through, and I'm struggling with the decision. So I guess.
One other concern I would have is, you know, I think it's important to treat all the property owners as equally as possible. Look at what that property can be developed into. There's 1,500 some feet. You could have 8 riparian lots built in there by permit alone. Every riparian lot would be allowed a dock or 2 docks, several boats, and it probably would be more less environmentally friendly to have that, because every dock would be spread out by 150 feet or more along the entire 1,500 feet. So are we going to require an EAW every time a new property owner comes on the lake? Because the cumulative effect of adding more riparian lots, you're gonna end up in the same place at some point in time, if not worse. So that's when I look at, are we treating people equally? Are we applying the laws and the ordinance equally to all property owners? If we're not, we're gonna open ourselves up for some liability here. And I've seen it happen. It's happened in the 70s, it's happened in the 90s. Where we were kind of arbitrary and capricious in some of the things, and the property owner sued.
So I was part of the planning commission, being the board chair, vice chair, sitting through each of the sessions, reading through all the comments, having numerous conversations with several of you. I share Steve's concern about the lake, but I have found that the people that I thought would give me some information, their hands are also tied, and saying that because this property or this project falls within our shoreline ordinance, they don't do speculation on what's gonna happen to a lake. And so what Dave says is, you know, you said that you don't feel like the planning planning commission board of adjustment heard your comments. It's not that we haven't heard your comments, but we have to do what is legal. We have to follow, does it fall under the ordinance, and then what do we have the jurisdiction to do? We've had a lot of comments, a lot of emails about, you know, the boat traffic and what it's gonna do to the shoreline, but we can't regulate any of that. The only thing we can do to regulate that is if you decide that you wanna do what LaSalle did, and that is you come under the ordinance for the county, and then it applies to all of you. And so, even though I share the concerns, I have to also look legally. That's what the county is under obligation to do, is what legally is accepted. And that will stand up in court. So I had a lengthy conversation with Danica on Friday. She called me, I really appreciated it. And I specifically asked her, and she said the DNR will not speculate what will happen with boat traffic.
And regarding the pier and, you know, aquatic vegetation, they have a permitting process that they will follow in the spring. And if it meets their requirements, it meets their requirements. If it doesn't, then they're gonna have to make adjustments to meet their requirements. But there is, based on everything I've read and everything I've watched, if what the residents of Pickerel Lake seem to want for their lake, based on the comments and stuff, there is a way to do it, and it is the surface water ordinance in Hubbard County. LaSalle Lake has it and Lester Lake has it. And you certainly, I believe it'd probably be a petition process to go through, but if you wanna limit the horsepower and miles per hour on your lake, you could do it, but you have to do it for every resident and every visitor to the lake. It can't just be selective based on, you know, this new property owner, well, he's gotta abide by a different set of rules than the rest of us. Unless there's compelling information that requires a mandatory EAW to look into things further, I just don't see it.
And echoing the surface water ordinance in Hubbard County, I've had a few calls over the years with people on smaller lakes concerned about wake boats and stuff like that. So if the state of Minnesota isn't gonna regulate the horsepower, wake boats and stuff, such like that on small lakes, that does give you an opportunity here, and I would be supportive of it. I know there's a lot of lakes that, like I say, people have given me a call, they've called the sheriff, there's a wake boat out there, they're getting 2-3 foot waves coming in, eroding their shoreline, they can sit there and watch it, and there's nothing they can do about it at that point. But if you do something like that with the surface water ordinance, it would help. And like Dave said, you're not picking out, then this person has to abide by the ordinance, everybody would have to.
Yeah, I've seen the damage that wakeboards can do to vegetation, but it needs to apply to everyone that's on the lake, not just one owner, just like David was saying.
We just reviewed just a little while ago, I think 3 or 4 months ago, a campground on 5th Crow Wing Lake where the shoreline is very similar, matter of fact, more of it. And for 12 or 15 years, however long that's been there, it's been there a long time, more than a decade anyhow. The residents of the lakes have had no concern with that.
The one comment I just want to make is the applicant has certain amount of property rights that we need to adhere to and acknowledge. He's gone through the process through the Environmental Services Office to try to achieve his ultimate goal. Now, whether we personally agree with it or not isn't the point. If he is following the proper procedures and everything has been vetted through the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment, then it's difficult to go and make a decision against what has already been found. Whether I personally agree with that or not is besides the point.
And not too long ago, this board did not approve a CUP for a campground, but part of the reason I didn't approve that one was the applicant had violations that he was slow to address, where this applicant has done everything above board and strived to do whatever needed to be done legally, and so that has to weigh in, at least in my mind. You know, really, I can't think of any lake that wants a campground. If you ask anybody on any lake that's living there, no matter the size of the lake, it's not a popular thing. But there are property owner rights.
And I would add to the chamber, you can do the study from the Chamber of Commerce that there's definitely a need for campgrounds in this county. With our resorts disappearing, people are looking for places to stay. And that's one option that is available to people that's less expensive, and so that they can enjoy the public waters also.
Yeah, being a former resort owner, I always looked at resorts and campgrounds as a way to get people who, to experience, you gotta be able to experience the environment in order to have an appreciation for it. And you gotta have a place to go to. How else do you do that unless there's a resort and a campground?
So although I have concerns, I honestly don't see, Eric, address me if I'm wrong, but I don't see anybody being able to speculate on what could happen. Or I don't see an agency even willing to say.
No, it would be very speculative as to what the impact of watercraft usage at this property would be, and whether that would be over a certain threshold that would be detrimental to the lake. To be able to assign that to the watercraft on this property and say that it's those watercraft and not others that are coming in on the public access or from other properties on the lake, I don't know how you would possibly be able to do that.
And I would add that I agree with Eric's comments that, based on the copious amount of information we have and concerns, looking through the EAW application, the only two things I see that we have not received information on is carbon sequestration, which in a project this size, I just don't even see how that's relevant.
I guess the issue I see is if, if everything moves forward the way the petitioner is, or the applicant is moving forward, if something is wrong, we don't find out until it's too late. You can't go back and change it. You can't fix what's in the water, or it is difficult and very expensive, and then who pays for it? Who fixes that? And it's sad in today's day and age that a lot of the users of any lake take no acknowledgement into what they're doing and so forth. I've seen wakeboard boats running on other lakes, not in Hubbard County, but in Cass County, and I was just amazed at the water action that's there and the impact that it has on everyone. It's not just my little slice of heaven, it's the whole lake is getting affected by it. So, I mean, whether I agree with his campground design and the footprint he's planning, you know, like I said, that's not the point of this. The point is to do it properly, to make sure all of the boxes are checked, to make everything passes, so to say, the smell test, and to make sure that it's all laid out there so that we can make an appropriate decision that's not only best for the lake and the environment, but the adjacent neighborhood that's there. I don't want everything negatively affected, because it does not do anybody any favors to have a negative stigma on everything.
Anything else from the board? Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to deny the petition for EAW.
I'll second that.
Would that be adopting, Tom, the findings of
Yes,
fact
oh, yeah,
drafted?
adopting your findings of facts, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I read through every one of them and agree with them.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That's the last item that I had for the board, unless the board has any questions for me.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
What you got until it's gone.
So the next item has been pulled.
Yep.
So we'll go to 9A, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only notes I have on the administrator's report are, you should all have received notice from the Campaign Finance Board that you have to fill out your form by the end of the month.
I haven't gotten one.
No.
And if you haven't, I'll make sure that Denise shares this link and this information with you.
Okay.
Even if you spent nothing, you're still supposed to check the box and say, we've spent nothing, so.
Okay, fair.
The due date is January 29th. I'll make sure that you have that information. You can see that our convene training on January 9th from 10 a.m. to noon is board development, board and staff development. We'd have department heads here and the board here from 10 to noon. So what I'd ask is that we make a motion to essentially cancel the work session for next week, because board development would not be subject to the open meeting law, and we would probably have a different setup than we would to be able to do this. So I would ask that the board would consider canceling the work session for next week, and then we would, and I should have brought this up when we were looking at the agenda, at the calendar for the week before, but
So we come in at 10 o'clock then?
we would just come in at 10 o'clock and we would just have this board development and
Okay.
leadership development training next week.
10 to noon?
10 to noon, yep.
Because I have an appointment at 12:40.
I believe it will be here.
Okay,
I'm waiting to hear if there's any special setup or accommodations needed for his presentation. I think we can do additional tables and get what he wants done there. It's just that staff development, leadership development is not subject to open meeting laws, and we would not then have a regular meeting.
And there obviously isn't anything pressing that needs to come for the work session.
I have nothing on the agenda right now for open work session items, so no.
Do you need a motion or something?
We do need a motion to change the schedule.
I'll make that motion.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tom seconds, further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just to go back to the campaign finance thing, I did it, and then when I had to do it again, it's like they wouldn't take, like, they took my one, but then it seems like they created another one for me, and it took a phone call to finally get it squared away that I've already done this, and now you guys want me to do it again, and then, of course, I had to throw in there, if I get reelected, am I gonna have to do it make a third account, and then they finally got the picture, but, so hopefully it'll go smoother.
We'll take a look. We should be able to identify who they have listed as elected officials in the county, and you should be able to check the box relative to their current list of elected officials. The last item I have is item 9B, which is to review and approve the bid for legal newspaper in Hubbard County. Again, this year, we got one submission from Park Rapids Enterprise. The rates are the same as last year. So those are the bid results we have. We have one submission from Park Rapids Enterprise, same rates as last year.
Board wishes?
Well, then I'll move to approve. Same rates?
We need a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the Park Rapids Enterprise.
I'll second.
And Dave seconds. Okay, Tom and Dave, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then any questions you might have, comments? I know Ted had some questions. We're going to have a conversation after the meeting. Okay, that's all I have.
All right, committee reports? Anybody go to anything at our last meeting?
No, I don't have any.
No.
I guess I could start right there. I had one. Mississippi Headwaters Board. We had a presentation from Minfish. Oh, sure. They went over their 2024 Minfish Sports Fishing Coalition, a 501c4 initiative platform. They talk about the financing or investment, as they'd like to call it. A lot of the discussion was on the Keep It Clean campaign. Many of you know that the started up, I believe it was on Red Lake, dealing with the ice fishing, people leaving stuff, debris, human waste, and all that kind of stuff on the waters. So the state is getting involved in that. And that's something that, like I say, we discussed and we support, and I think myself, even not being on the Mississippi Headwaters Board, would support something like that. I'm an avid ice fisherman when there's safe ice out there. It's not safe right now. You wouldn't catch me out there for a few fish. But whatever's left on the ice, when it thaws out, it goes in the lake. It's as simple as that. So I'm glad to see that there's something being done about that. Let's see, Aiken County is going to, we signed a contract with Aiken County to do some promotion of Aiken County. They're using our Twitter accounts and that. It's Minnesota Traditions is the name of it. They've got a promotional campaign. It's Naturally, I can't remember exactly what they're campaigning, working on me, I guess. So it's one of those things, and I've asked the question before if we're promoting Hubbard County at all. And this, like I say, Aiken County, they're getting out there. Instead of starting their own Twitter accounts and stuff like that, social media accounts, they're gonna hook their wagon to the Mississippi Headwaters Board's Minnesota Traditions, which already has, I believe, is over 66,000 Twitter followers, and I think it's 40,000 Facebook followers, and I'm not really up on social media, so I can't tell you what all that means. We did have the executive director, Tim Terrell, did present. He has been going around to area high schools to kind of tell the high school kids about what the Mississippi Headwaters Board does, and also about employment opportunities if they want to be working outdoors, the opportunities that may be available to them. And that's all I've got for the Mississippi Headwaters Board.
Dave, you have something?
Yeah, just to give you a little update, last week we had a Heritage meeting again, and just to update where we're at. Building updates and improvements, we've completed manor room turnover and upgrades, completed new flooring in another cottage apartment, and that's, again, continuing to be popular and helping us fill the manor up, so we'll continue to do that as necessary. Workforce grant, first payment was dispersed on payroll, is 12/14, so some of that money we got, the employees have been very grateful to get that. We are beginning to open up the upstairs in the nursing home. Our target census goal is going to be 43. They began moving residents last Tuesday, and let's see what else.
Where we
Union.
have 36 residents?
Yeah, right about anywhere from 34 to 36. Union contracts were approved. We moved to a 3-year contract, so that'll be nice. Won't have to worry about that for a couple of years. And let's see what else. We did have a resignation of our director of nursing. We are actively recruiting. In the meantime, Knut Nelson is helping us fill that position. Let's see what else we got here. 3 staff had COVID in December, so we still deal with that a little bit here and there. Heritage Manor was at 20, but 1 is supposed to be admitted in early January, so we'll be back to 21. Cottages have 17 out of 18 occupied, and one is in hospice, and 1 more reservation has been received for after the holidays here. Heritage Living Center was at 32 on the 21st, but I think it's changed back up since then. As far as financial details, the entire Heritage community in November, we had a positive EBITDA of $101,114 and a net income of $6,085. So we continue to do okay. Our debt service coverage to date, year to date, is 1.27. So far so good. Hopefully the trend continues. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think I've had anything else with the holidays, really, so.
Someone told me, speaking of staffing, that the vet center in Bemidji that has been delayed for allowing people to come in because of staffing issues.
Yeah.
It's everything, it seems like. It's like, where did the workers go?
You probably noticed Pinecrest is, I think the roof is on now, too, by there, so that's progressing also. Yeah, they should be having no issues. They were behind early on, but I'm sure they're well caught up by now. I think, well, after that rain we had, I noticed in the back 20 acres, the frost had got out on the ground there because there was a puddle there and it disappeared, so there's probably places where they're still probably pouring concrete.
Yeah. I know it's helped me. I'm already starting to look at projects I was gonna do next spring and
Yeah.
maybe get started on them now. Then it will snow.
Yeah, it's kind of an anomaly, but it's happened before, I remember. I think it was mid-2000s, I was pouring concrete for tower footings this time of year once over near Brainerd, so it happens. El Nino.
Okay, so meetings to note, there's an open meeting law, remote participation. I don't know if any of you are gonna attend. I'm gonna be in Prime West that day for a different meeting, so I can't. Anyone thinking about going to the AMC Legislative Conference? Roadways, but something to think about.
Gotta think about it some more.
Yeah, and then, the Lunch and Learn, on January 18th, speaking of legislatures, Paul Utke and Kirsten are gonna be here. So if you're interested in going to that, that's a Thursday. It'll be at the hangar, but you need to register with, through the chamber to attend. Okay, anything else?
This, just to ask, is anybody going to the open meeting law and remote, and remote participation? 'Cause I guess I was thinking about maybe going to it, and I'm not sure who I would register with.
AMC, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is that a Zoom type meeting, or do I have to, okay?
Yep.
Because if I have to go there, I probably wouldn't. And then, can I connect with you afterwards to register me on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just to note, the MRC meeting, will be next Monday. It's gonna be in person in Alec at Douglas County. Steve, it would be nice sometimes, I'll be attending,
Yeah,
but if you can, cause it's either usually the board chair or the vice chair that go to represent the county. So sometimes it's on Zoom and then you could just attend that way. But I'll be going next Monday. Any issues that we want brought up besides comments on the flag?
I'm gonna be gone the 16th of January for
Okay.
the regular board meeting. Do you want me to participate remotely, or should I just wait till maybe a little closer to that date to see what the agenda looks like, and then make a decision whether the board would want me to attend remotely or just
We
pass
need to
it?
post a week ahead of time,
Okay,
so if you want to talk to me after the meeting,
okay,
and just have that conversation, if you're going to be in a position where you can participate remotely, we can note that.
okay,
But
all
we
right,
do need to post it a week out.
okay, all right,
With an address.
Yeah, it has to,
With
you
an
have to have an
address.
address, yeah, or where you're gonna be.
okay, all right.
And I know
I can
some,
do that.
some of us will be gone in January and the meeting's over, let's give the dates to Jeff, and so we just are up on all that.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Ted moves, second?
I'll second.
Dave seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, thank you.